Governor Kathy Hochul has announced she will not remove New York City Mayor Eric Adams from office for now. The decision comes after the Department of Justice moved to dismiss Adams' indictment on bribery and other charges. The prosecutor overseeing that case asserted there was a trade-off used to ensure the mayor's cooperation with President Trump on immigration. 8 federal prosecutors resigned rather than file to dismiss the case. So, Lisa, did Governor Hochul make the right decision here?
In terms of not firing,
removing
him. Yes, I think she did, although we can question her motives in doing so. But I think she did make the right decision. It's an extraordinary measure that's never before been invoked in the history of New York. And, you know, it's very unlikely he's going to be reelected, so he's only going to be the mayor for another 10 months or so. And, you know, frankly, to the extent his fealty to Trump extends to cooperation on immigration, you know, many people in New York City, I think, support that. And by the way, that's been his view all along. So it's not that undermines the quid pro quo argument. And, you know, and to the extent the fealty to Trump extends to other things and therefore undermines the interests of people of New York City, you know, she is asking or attempting to take measures that would sort of rein in his powers, extend some supervision over his management of the operations and finances.
Even that's quite a step for a governor.
No, it is. But I think if she does absolutely nothing, she looks even weaker than she already looks.
Yeah. Nina.
Yeah, I think that all of the 3 sort of storylines out there can be true at the same time. I think there's evidence to suggest that, in fact, Adams did commit the crimes that he's been charged with by the Biden DOJ. But at the same time, the idea that he somehow came around to opposing immigration or taking a conservative stance because of Trump is counterfactual. I mean, it's demonstrably untrue. In 2022, he was very public in criticizing Biden for not doing more to help with the over 110,000 asylums who'd gone to New York. And this is what he said, and I'm quoting, "I believe the White House is wrong," talking about Biden. Then he took his 4-day trip to the border. And then finally, this is what he said. He sounded the alarm in 2023, saying that the immigrant crisis will destroy New York City. So the idea that somehow he's come to that position now is clearly not in line. But there could also, thirdly, be a quid pro quo, except that his quid would be the same as Trump's quo for the reasons that I just stated.
Well, he was pretty obviously lobbying for a
Well,
pardon,
according to Danielle Sassoon, that's exactly what his lawyers did. Repeatedly said, you do this for me, I will do this for you. So the fact that I have said that I might be in support of you in the past, but now I'm clearly saying, you want me to do this? Will you do this for me? That leads to the quid pro quo. Now, but I agree with Lisa. I think at this point, for Hochul to remove him from office would be counterproductive. I do worry about a couple of things, though. One, what's going to happen over the next 10 months as, you know, people are fleeing his administration. You know, he had 4 more deputy mayors pull out of this. So, you know, I think she has the justification, but I agree that in this case she probably shouldn't exercise.
We also have another part of this entire story. You mentioned Danielle Sassoon. So, Ben, I mean, there's this, 8 prosecutors said, we're not going to file to dismiss. So there's some kind of resistance going on in the Department of Justice.
Yes, absolutely, because perception's reality. At the end of the day, we can speculate all day long about guilty mind, mens rea, but the bottom line is they had choices, and they chose the choice without prejudice option, which means he's on the hook. And if he doesn't stay in line, they can just put the charges right back on the table. They could have done with prejudice, or because this was the defense attorney in the one of the cases, most recent cases out of Manhattan for Trump, I'm sure they're still talking in the first 100 days, that it could have just been a pardon. But he's on the hook, so perception's reality.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But I think the politics here are very fraught, and that is why Hochul is moving very carefully. The fact is, I agree that I'd be surprised if he is reelected when his term ends at the end of this year for this reason. 2/3 of New York City residents support the removal. However, here's what Hochul has sort of indicated, that if she were to go even harder after Adams, then Trump is going to go harder after New York. And just this week, several really huge black ministers met with Hochul to discourage her from removing him. And then finally, there's the state constitution, right? Which requires that he has due process. So do Democrats really want to have this be the headline news as opposed to the stuff that Trump is doing?
Lisa, in your experience with the law, I mean, have you ever come across letters of resignation of the tone of the ones that we saw this past week?
No, I mean, they were very impassioned. And I'm going to say I fully agree with Ben. The problem here is the without prejudice aspect of this. And I think that's the only ground on which the judge, who hasn't yet ruled on whether he'll grant, as of the taping of the show, hasn't yet ruled on whether he'll grant the motion to dismiss or not. That's what's problematic. It's exactly what Ben said. And you know, I do think that it's possible that if the judge gives them enough trouble, or like declares they're going to have an evidentiary hearing and bring Sassoon in or something like that, the judge might, Trump might just pardon him. But one more thing, while she said she was in the room and heard the quid pro quo, you know, very prominent lawyers in big firms put their reputation on the line by writing to the same judge to say, we were in the room too.
Exactly, and that is so key.
But those lawyers were Adams' lawyers, were they not? That wrote, I think Alex Spiro was one.
It doesn't matter who they were. They put their, they didn't say, make an argument on Adams' behalf. They said, we are willing to go under oath and say this wasn't said. Now, again, I think it's a matter of characterization. I'm not calling Danielle Sassoon a liar by any means. I'm saying if there's enough of a question, that may, you know.